while we're rearranging and coming up, I just wanted to say once again a deep thank you to the sponsors who made this event happen. These events are very difficult to organize. They're very event to pull together. I want to thank you all for coming, but this is a good time to thank the sponsors. For those of you who aren't familiar, Crown Castle is out there getting small cells out into neighborhoods right now. They've been a good partner of ours over the years in terms of figuring out how to share infrastructure. Key Bank has worked on many broadband projects, financing them. The Internet Society has helped lots of local groups. They do all kinds of interesting things behind the scenes to make the internet keep working. Foresight Group works with cities on building all kinds of networks, but increasingly open access networks. And then we have the other sponsors of SmartWorks, Wincom, ISPN, and Vetro FiberMap. All of them are offering services that I hope you'll find out a little bit more about. And a final note is that there's a lot of people in this room who could be on stage. So make sure that in the networking breaks, you get a chance to meet some new faces, because there's a lot of really good expertise in this room. Someone's missing a mic. Great. I don't know if I want to give a mic to Ernie. So let me do some introductions here as we get started. I want to start by introducing Cheryl DeBerry, the Natural Resources Business Specialist for Garrett County. Cheryl's been on several panels with me lately and represents a very pragmatic view of someone who's making things happen in a challenging part of the country with not a lot of support. So with that said, you come from a very pragmatic community that is embracing a variety of solutions, and I'm actually hoping you can give us a brief outline of what they are, and we'll go into them in more depth later.
Great. Yes, thank you. Happy to be here. I'm in the far westernmost part of Maryland. We're actually about 2 hours south of here. And we're in the Appalachian Mountains of Maryland, which seems like a weird thing to say, but yeah, there are no crabs in Garrett County. We are one of those, somebody asked where the role of a county is, and that's us. We're in a situation back in 2011, our commissioners asked us, what one economic development thing could we do, could we find resources for that would help the most people and the most businesses and to help economic development in the county? And by far, broadband was it. At that point, we're like, well, how the heck do you do that in a rural area where we are in mountains? We have 46 people per square mile in general, about 14 per square mile in areas that we're going to reach as at a maximum down to about 1. So we hired a consultant. We got some Appalachian Regional Commission money. They came up with a plan to have a private partnership for the county to put some infrastructure in and for a private network provider to run a network. We didn't want to do that as a county. And using a new technology called television white space. Since then, we have went out to bid and found our network operator, and we we're using TV white space and some other unlicensed spectrum, some 5 gigahertz, not 5G, 5 gigahertz spectrum, using a couple different types of wireless technologies, fixed wireless. We have about 500 people in rural areas connected right now. We had the advantage of having like our major arteries, which was like a letter, number 7 in our county, if you look at the map, had fiber, but anywhere, if you were a mile away from that, you had nothing. So we started at the end of those fiber connections and sent out some signals, and it's working well. Beyond that, we didn't want to make our incumbent providers mad, so we decided to ask them how can we help you expand as well? We did a pilot project last year of, we had a Comcast, God bless them. They're wonderful to work with in our area. They had an area that was about a mile away from the end of their line, about 12 businesses and residences. It was along a county road, and they said, if you can help us get this next half a mile to the next set of poles that are there, that we'll be able to reach this next little community where we had already lost a business because they did not have connectivity. So we used county roads crews for a couple days. They had the trenching equipment. Comcast provided some conduit, and we laid conduit for them for a half a mile down to the next spot. And because of that little 2 days worth of help, they were able to reach that community and go on past that on the poles to reach about 45 passings. So we're just trying to do anything and everything to get things done because nobody else was doing it for us.
Thank you. One of the lessons that we'll discuss is I think that your local representatives of large companies might not reflect the same experiences that other communities have found with their local representatives of large companies. But I want to move on to Melanie McCoy, Superintendent of the, now you're going to correct me because no matter what I say, I'm going to say it wrong, Sebewaing Light and Water in Michigan, which is a small community, and you're one of the smallest cities in the entire country to have built your own citywide, townwide fiber network. So first of all, tell me how to pronounce it correctly.
It's pronounced Sebewaing. You came very close.
Very
You
close,
did- you
okay.
did very good. You can usually say it if you don't look at it, if you don't read it. Okay. So again, we are a small community. We're in the thumb of Michigan. Our county is 36,000 people in our county, and our town is 1,500 people. We have 900 homes and 100 businesses. So we're about 1.5 miles square. So when we put our fiber network in, we had no pushback from the incumbents because they said we were too small. They didn't really care about us. So we were able, we are electric municipal, so we have our own electric and water, and we had a wireless system that was limping at the time. So we had, through the years, tried to take care of it ourselves because we didn't have the incumbents that would come. We had dial-up, basically. It was one of the best projects I've ever worked on. I've been in the power industry for almost 40 years, and this was fantastic. It's people wanted it. The biggest challenge we had was, so this is 4 years ago we started. We became the first gigabit community in Michigan. We have fiber to everyone, and our goal was to have 500 people, so 50% penetration within 3 to 4 years. We hit that at year 2.5, and we're almost to 600 now. It's interesting because we're still getting about 5 people a month that keep coming on. As people change, move in and out of the homes, somebody will get connected, or we have almost all of our businesses, so it's going great. There's been very little churn. I think we've had, like, I could probably count on my one hand how many people have left our system. So it's been fantastic, and the biggest challenge we have is some customer education. So it's also little things that the seniors that came to our counter, again, we're electric, so it was we see everyone. They come in and pay their bills, and the seniors sometimes would say, "Oh, what is this fiber? We don't need it." And then Christmas comes along, they get an iPad from their kids, or their grandkids are coming to visit, and they want the internet, and the kids are loving to visit grandma and grandpa now. And the people that are able to commute, because we're rural, so they can work from home, they can do school from home. Some people that are hooked up to us said we save over $100 a month in data because we were able to hook up to the system, and now our kids' phones aren't using the data all the time. So it's been great little stories.
Great, thank you. David Corrado, I have to say that of everyone on the panel, I'm so excited to have you up here as CEO of Medina County Fiber Network in Ohio, because you and I have had these conversations over many years now in which you had this wonderful asset that you'd built, and we're trying to figure out how to make the most use of it. And it feels like you're nailing that now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing, as the others have focused on the residential access. You've came about it from a different point of view.
Well, thank you. Am I on here?
If you push it up.
Great. We good now?
Yes.
There we go. Thank goodness I have engineers that work for me. First, I want to thank the people of Pittsburgh, being a Cleveland Browns fan. I didn't know what to expect in my trip here from Cleveland. Other than having my passport checked at the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, it was a very nice trip, so thank you very much. Christopher, what you're talking about, yes, so Medina County, we go back, we're about 30 miles south of Cleveland, and about 10 years ago, the county found itself with very little economic development, companies leaving the county, yet Medina County is the fastest growing county in the state of Ohio by number of residents flocking to the area. The one bad statistic is that 70% of those people leave the county to work elsewhere. So that's quite a bit of tax revenue, which is leaving the county. So 6 years ago, the network went live, and it is an open fiber network focused on commercial. By open, I mean that think of one big railroad track, which is what we are, 150 miles going through the 5 largest cities and some I call it quasi-rural areas. We have 14 carriers on the network, and we are basically selling their products. They bring their trains onto our railroad track, and think of each one of those cars as bringing internet, voice, data center services, etc. And we have been able to attract AT&T, CenturyLink, Crown Castle. We have the local carriers such as Bresco Broadband, Lightspeed Hosting, and we have regional carriers like First Communications, Ornet, which is the backbone for the state of Ohio. Today, we are in a position where we will be focusing on fiber to the home. We're actually kicking that off in August to start with seeing what the take rates might be, looking at different areas within the county. But one thing you should remember with the open network, that it becomes, and it's very important to note this, you have to get it to become a utility within your municipality. Today, I'm working with 3 large companies out of Europe who are looking to either come to Medina County or other states, and one of the top 3 questions they ask is, do you have municipal broadband that you consider your infrastructure? They don't ask, do you have a fiber carrier? They want to know, and they're very happy when they know they have 14 different choices, but that is the big key. So the push behind this whole network was economic development. 4 years ago, economic development was around $80 million per year. Today, we're going to be breaking the $300 million mark this year alone. $220 million last year, and it will go over $300 million. And that is the key, that you have to have that fiber as a utility in your municipality. And the other piece, I believe, is make sure that you open it up. You don't have to fight with the incumbents. You can be, if you will, a product to enhance their current services today.
Thank you. I think I'm going to try and slide this back briefly just to make sure Ernie is not hidden from half the room. Ernie is the Deputy Director of the Public Service Department in Fairlawn, which is located east of Medina, near Akron. And Ernie, you know, I think your project is fascinating because you're doing citywide fiber optics, but in a way using a financial model that most others have not, and one that I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future. So most of the citywide municipal networks have used revenue bonds, in which the idea is no taxpayer dollars are used. It's an important part of the process is to assure people that no taxpayer dollars are used, that the network will be paid for solely by the revenues of the network. And Ernie, you've had a more future-looking point of view, I think. Can you describe that?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. The city of Fairlawn, residentially, we're around 7,500 residents. 30 to 40,000 people come into our city to work every day. So we needed to come up with what we thought was a better plan to just bring internet into the city. We're now doing fiber to the home for the entire city. We pass by every home, every business, and we have a wireless overlay that we're working on for our main corridors, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to do that overlay for the entire city. The financial piece to our network, we looked at this as exclusively an essential utility. So we built it and had our mindset in the same way that you would a road, a sewer line, a water line. We thought that that money should come from general fund. So we went out, we financed the money, and we pay for it out of general fund. The services that we do on top of that then pay for the operation and maintenance of the network. So currently, I can tell you where we're at currently. At the moment, with upstream consultants and maintenance of the network, we're roughly at 115,000. We're now bringing in around 135,000 after 14 months of operation. We're at 47% of the homes and businesses are on our network. But the infrastructure and the construction did not cost anyone any more money than it would have out of our general fund on a regular basis. So I'm in control of the engineering and construction for the entire city. We generally would spend somewhere around $3 million on road infrastructure throughout the year. What we decided to do is we decided to lower the road infrastructure. We amped up our road department to take care of maintenance. We took $500,000 away from that road construction budget, and we put that towards the payment of the bonding that we went out and built the network. The network cost us $10 million to initially put in, and I would say it's a success from the financial situation, and a success that we have 3 major incumbents in town currently, and we're still able to pick up 47%. And I think I heard earlier 5 to 10 people a month coming on. We have roughly 5 to 10 people every month coming on still after our initial big burst. We tried to install roughly 75 customers a week when we initially put it in the ground. We did it by 12 different districts, and out of those districts we would light one up and then immediately try to give service as quickly as we possibly could. And now we've hit that peak where we covered the initial sign-ups, and now this is just a monthly sign-up. I would like to add one thing on to that I heard earlier. We haven't lost a customer yet. It's only been by someone moving, and when they move, the new person that's moving into that house takes that service. The businesses, we've picked all of them up. We haven't lost a business yet. We're lucky that we haven't any go into bankruptcy or anything like that. So I would say, our network was definitely a success.
And our final contestant is Kim McKinley, the Director of Marketing for UTOPIA, who I've had the pleasure of seeing on multiple panels in recent months. And I actually asked her if she didn't mind if I started her off by digging a little hole to throw her in. And that has to do with this network, UTOPIA, the Utah Telecommunications Open Infrastructure Agency, which was one of the oldest fiber networks in the nation, a very bold project. It's learned a lot of lessons along the way, and we're going to be discussing several of those. But I think it may be the single most attacked network by incumbent providers. If you're thinking about building a network in Florida, likely Comcast, AT&T will say, oh, you don't want to do that. Look what happened to UTOPIA. And so it's not just the incumbents, it's also the state legislature. The Utah state legislature set out, in part because of the lobbying, entirely because of the lobbying of incumbent providers, to sabotage a project of 14 of its own cities. At any rate, it has been defined as a failure. And so I'm asking if you can give us some background, and more importantly, how do you respond to those who say it was a failure?
I never knew it was a failure. Nobody ever told me, or they tell me at least every day, about 10 times still, or I hear it from everyone. But anywho, like you said, it's the Utah Telecommunications Open Infrastructure Agency. That is actually an acronym. Don't think about that too hard. The Utahns used OMP from open to get there. But anywho, so UTOPIA Fiber was started in 2004. The concept came out in 2002 when at that time, 16 cities came and asked the incumbent providers if they would come and build the network in their cities. The incumbent providers said no. So what did the cities? The cities took it in their own hands to build this network, which is funny now when they started attacking them, right? Because they didn't want us. So today, what? Oh, sorry. No. So
You get attacked no matter what you do.
I get attacked all the time. But now, so today is we are building out in 11 cities. We have about 20,000 customers on our network. We are growing at about 500 customers a month at this point. I even had a 40 installation day the other day. But anywho, so UTOPIA is a open access network, like we had talked about. We have 10 different residential service providers on our network, and we have 30 business service providers on our network. Something that is pretty funny is some of the incumbents that attack us actually use us on the back end, or for some of their circuits too. So it is a little bit funny. But how do we respond to some of the attacks that we get from our own state legislators, even some of our mayors, and even some of our city council who still attack us to this day? I call it the deliver, education, and success. When you deliver a product that the consumers want, people will shut up. If you educate the legislators of why we're doing what we're doing and its infrastructure, they shut up. And if you have success, people shut up. It's really simple. I think it's been a long journey to get where we are today, but we have more support in our legislator than we ever have. We hear constant attacks that they're still coming after us. We are getting contacted by cities who want to join, and we had a city issue an RFP. And when they saw that UTOPIA was going to be one of the respondents, they threatened a lawsuit. They still do. They don't like us. They're out to get us at every turn. We see that. I love when we hear that you guys don't have competition, like that nobody's leaving. When we did a promotion one time, which you could get 250 meg for $50, up and down. 2 days later, I saw it on Comcast's website, 250 meg, $50. They watch us closely, and they're doing everything they can to shut us down. But we're kind of little scrappy ones in Utah, so even as much as they try, they haven't killed us, and I don't think they will.
What do your customers think of you?
We are the highest rated provider in the state of Utah with a Google rating score of 4.3. In the telecommunications industry, that's unheard of. So our customers absolutely love us, and I think that's why we're seeing the growth we do.
And I just want to throw in one additional thing, which is that UTOPIA is undoubtedly doing much better now. There was a period where I was not able to cover its debt or operating costs. During that period, there was a series of hearings where the state was kind of closing in, and I paid close attention to them, in part because you saw local businesses stepping up and saying, you know, my business, we need to find a bigger location, and we realized we could not move outside of the UTOPIA footprint because we could not get the services we needed elsewhere. So even in the worst days before we knew that UTOPIA would recover, there was still a lot of love and a lot of benefits that were coming from it.
No, and I think that is one of the benefits that a lot of people, when we had some of our dark days, stood up, and I think the residents and the businesses stood up. One of the things that we are in 11 cities. We're owned by 11 cities, but we have a network that goes throughout about 30 cities throughout Utah, because businesses will contact us and they will pay for the build for us to build to them still.
So that leads into the first question. This is going to be very discussion-oriented, and we're going to get to questions in a little bit from the audience. But I wanted to start off by pushing in a little bit more about this discussion of the incumbents, because on our planning call, I did feel like Kim's blood pressure went up as some of the other people were talking about how easy it was to work with the incumbents. So I'd like each person to talk a little bit about their experience of working with incumbent providers and advice for others who are trying to figure out what their options are. Does anyone want to jump in? All right. And I believe you can all keep your mics on. They'll manage the levels from the back.
I think we're good. So we actually have two groups of incumbents. One group, which is basically those companies that wanted to move from using a copper-based infrastructure or last mile to a fiber-based. Those are part of the 14 carriers that are on the network. We then have the cable providers and the ILECs that put a lot of money into copper.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in for ILEC.
ILECs.
The incumbent telephone company.
Yes, incumbent telephone company. Thank you. They are the ones that prefer not to join the fiber network. As you know, the cable providers have geographies carved out. They have these handshakes over beers that basically we won't come into your area, you won't come in our area. We'll keep the prices higher that way. Those type of things. And then we do have a couple carriers who we call are the competitive incumbents. They do have both fiber and copper. They do not believe in municipal networks. Talking about Comcast with the pricing, we've seen Spectrum, when Charter bought Time Warner, basically drop prices by 40%. So we had to create a Spectrum Buster product with a couple of our carriers where we can beat them, but it cost us about 40% of our gross profit. So we run into those cases, and those larger incumbents that do not want to enhance their products through fiber have very large marketing, and we also find that they will build out at a loss. Spectrum in our area will build a $15,000 lateral for no charge just to make $400 a month. So for those of you in telecom, your payback is normally around 24 months. You're looking at 5 to 6 years on this. So it's those companies, especially the ones that are on the block to be sold, where Spectrum has already had a couple offers. They're trying to get their stock price up, and that makes it difficult. So those are the areas where we're fighting against that pricing.
So I could just touch on our two incumbents we have Comcast and AT&T in our area, and it was interesting, even as small as we are, as soon as we started our system up and going, they started bringing fiber into the area. So they are trying to compete with us. We've lost one customer to Comcast that we are aware of. That's one of the ones that we can count. Some of our financial institutions in town need to have two connections, so we are one, and then they go with, if they are part of a system, they go with one of the other incumbents. So I see they're necessary, I guess, for some of our customers. It's interesting, our residents are the ones that benefit, because even if somebody does go to them, they're gonna be competitive. I mean, they lower their rates in our community because we're there to be competition. So that's our experience with it.
I guess we tried to be very thoughtful and not overtly competing with the private sector with our public funding portion of our project. So our fixed wireless project, we had, and especially for our funding source with the Appalachian Regional Commission, it's a federal funding source. We had very targeted, focused areas that were outside of any incumbent provider's service area, and we polled the service providers and asked them, will you ever go here? And they all said, hell no, because it just doesn't make sense to go 3 miles to the next freaking customer. I mean, they can't cash flow at this. They're never going to go there by themselves. So they aren't mad at us being in those areas at all. Now, our private provider that we are working with will be adding their own skin in the game for the project and will overbuild if they want. But frankly, who is going to switch from a cable or fiber connection to a fixed wireless connection where you get less service for more cost? Unless you're really pissed off at the current service provider, which I guess a couple people may be, but I can't imagine it, because you're going to pay almost a third to a half more for the same service. So I don't. So far, that hasn't been terrible. Now we do have finally Comcast. I mean, our local Comcast guys are wonderful. They have 6 areas. You know, I said we did that pilot last year where we trenched for them. They have 6 areas now that they're proposing, and we're doing some right-of-way checks and everything to make sure that the county has that capability to go to those areas. So they are expanding with our help in some areas. So the other providers have all said, yeah, no, thanks. One other provider has applied for a Community Connect grant through USDA that we worked with them to help find them a community facility. We're going to make them a community facility because, frankly, the Community Connect money is awful in the fact that you have to have a public facility to use for people to go and use a computer and get on the internet. And we're talking about areas that have none. So we're going to make a little like phone booth thing for them to use.
Can I, you guys, can we get your Comcast people and get them hired in Utah? Because they
No,
seem a
they're
lot more
mine.
friendly.
He's mine. No.
I'm just saying. No, we're really friendly with our Comcast and CenturyLink folks because we see them everywhere we go. They are at our board meetings. They're at our city council meetings. I actually think I gave one of them a hug the other day because I see them more than I see, my mom. They're, friendly folks. But they're not that nice. They show up all the time because they're trying to shut us down. They follow us everywhere we go. So what we do is basically what I said before, is we're just delivering on the service and getting our cities who started this project to keep backing it. And they're just nasty folks there in Utah. They just don't like us. Maybe they just want the Utopia dream. I don't know. But we just combat them with delivery and doing what we do better than they can. And that's how we've kind of just held them off a little bit.
Well, I think the bottom line is they don't want the areas that we're working on. I mean, there's no way that they can make money there, so why would they ever go there?
One of the incumbents is fighting us right now for a 300-home community. 300 homes. It's not big cities. They're fighting us everywhere.
Well, for us, that would be a big city.
Well, I mean...
Perspective.
Everything's relative.
Well, I thought Utah was small.
I would say in Fairlawn, they've been our biggest cheerleader because their service levels and ability to service has been so poor that it made sense for the city to come in, do something like this, and make it a success. In the very beginning, I brought all three carriers into my conference room, asked all three to build exactly what we wanted to build. The city of Fairlawn would help finance that build, and let's sit down and have discussions. Two of them walked out almost immediately. The third one listened to a little more of my speech of the speeds that I would like to bring into the community, and he patted me on the back and said, "Son, that's a really nice plan." So from there, we just decided to build it. But one thing that all of you should know, we all talk about speeds and how great fiber is, but after our second install, we realized if we just lived up to what the expectation we set with the customer, we were going to gain a huge success. If we said we would be there at 8 o'clock, we needed to be there at 8 o'clock. If we were going to deliver the speeds that we were telling them, then they would get those speeds and we would keep them as a customer. So that's what we found out more than anything is the customer service was where they were just falling down on a regular basis, and we could pick that up. So I think you hear that from all of us. Customer service is really what everyone's after. Just living up to what you've told them you're gonna give them.
So I want to jump into following up on something that David actually brought up, which has to do with thinking of this as utility. And I'm curious, this is an easy one for Melanie, but I'd like to start with Cheryl because I have a sense of in a small area. I mean, your title is the Natural Resources Business Specialist.
Electrons are natural, right? I guess.
Yeah, they've been with us for a long time. And, how do you manage this? And I'd like to get a sense from, in particular, Ernie and David, a little bit about how to manage it. And we're going to transition from that into marketing more and how that fits with a utility type mindset. So, Cheryl.
So I guess. So with our fixed wireless project, as I said, the county government was not of the mind of wanting to be a utility and wanting to provide service where they were competing with the private sector. So we went out to bid. It was a competitive bid. Anybody could have bid on the project. We found a private partner that was doing a fixed wireless project using TV white space on the eastern shore of Virginia. And they are our network operator. So we own the infrastructure that we purchased through the grant money matched by county money. And so if this network operator goes under or, God forbid, leaves, we still own enough of the backbone and enough of the, the equipment, the antennas and everything so that we could go out to bid and find another network operator to do this for us. There have been instances where we've had businesses in the county that can't get service through the private sector yet. And it may be, 2 or 3 years from now, we think we might be there kind of situation where they want service today. So we, the county, have jumped in, and with the understanding that we are not going to keep providing this service if there's a viable, affordable private alternative for you eventually. So we have put up antennas at public buildings and shot a signal over to a private business using our, we the county provide service to the school systems through our network, through our public network, and the hospital and libraries. And so once in a while, we're providing it to a private business just to get them over the hurdle until they can get a private provider to do it. So we're trying not to do it, but we will do it as a last resort.
Mm-hmm. Melanie, I'd like to sort of softly redirect that question just a little bit for you because, again, you're such a small utility. When Chattanooga built their network, they had hundreds of FTEs and they had people they could dedicate to studying it, becoming experts in it. How did you go about knowing that you could do it, like researching it and figuring it out, given that I'm guessing you don't have a lot of spare FTEs, full-time employees to do that sort of thing?
No, we don't. And we added actually half a person when we put the network in, and that is we had a part-time customer service. Our front office pays our bills, takes the payments from customers, does a lot of the invoicing, and so we had a part-time person there, so that went to a full-time person. Our electrical power plant production supervisor was loved the fiber, was one of the ones that wanted to get the fiber in, had been working with our fiber that connected all of our substations before, and they now do double duty. I am in a small community. It's a small rural agriculture community where people our linemen do water work, which is not something that is the norm. Usually you do just one, but ours do everything. So that's what's been able to make it work, I think, because we're so small. And it is just another utility. It's just what we have to do. We have the electric fund, we have the water fund, we have the internet fund. And what we don't do well, as that was your other comment, is marketing. Because we're a utility. We never knew how to market. And so today we still don't do well on that, but knock on wood, we haven't had to.
So I want to come back to that for a second, but I want to get a question into Ernie related to the structure first, because you did not have a municipal electric. You are a city manager that I think it's worth noting you have more power than most city managers. You have the trust of the community, been there for a while, right? So how did you structure it, and what advice would you have for others when they're thinking about how they might structure something?
You're correct. We didn't have any utility. We actually didn't even have a billing department. If we wanted to bill someone, it was really a letter or an email saying you owe the city this money. It's say someone hit a sign or whatever we would need to bill for. So we had to create an entire billing system. We had to come up with a billing system that made sense for an ISP, not only a wireless piece, but the fiber to the home. One thing that we did have that was a little unique compared to probably any other city you've heard of, we have a trash compactor that we take the city's trash, all the residential trash, they bring it to us. It's so uncommon. You'll see Cadillacs, Mercedes, whatever, bringing trash in the back of their car up to us. So it's easy to have a relationship with the people of Fairlawn because they're always bringing trash to the facility. Matter of fact, they don't even have trash cans in the garage. I mean, it's really take it out of the kitchen and drive it up to the city. We're open 7 days a week, at 14 hours a day. So it was easy to get that relationship with them.
But can I just jump in for a second? Is this something that you've thought about and you've recognized as an advantage in the past? Or is this, I can't imagine that you were sitting there thinking, you know what, how we'll make a fiber network? We have this relationship because of the trash system. Is that a thought you had? Or did you know that was an advantage that you had?
We knew that it would be an advantage to marketing, to interest. So we did many surveys. I had interns on a regular basis. Matter of fact, right before we announced that we were going to do it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was like 0 outside, and I had interns standing where people would throw out their trash to find out, is there interest here? To make sure that we were going to make the necessary step and the right step for the community. So that relationship, I've been with the city for 25 years. I'm fairly well known, and then that compactor makes it that much easier to get a process like this off the ground. No, what we didn't have billing. We didn't have a true marketing. The closest that we had to marketing was the Parks Department marketing. Certain programs throughout the year. We didn't have marketing. And obviously, we did not have a construction company on our own. So we went out for a basic RFP, and coming out of that, we realized that we made a mistake. That all communities do the same thing. They put out an RFP and say, please bring the magic bullet here and make this work. We realized right away that the magic bullet wasn't there. We had to come up with our own financing, and we had to come up with a design study. So we went back to the drawing board and did a design study, and then went after a builder for the network. In the meantime, it gave us a little bit of time to start the marketing piece of it and obviously bring a billing piece in.
So I'm going to take questions as soon as we wrap up this marketing question, but I do want to talk a little bit about it. And I think to transition to David, can you just talk a little bit about, you want to talk about a utility mindset, but as Melanie said, I fully agree, marketing does not come naturally to utilities, particularly monopoly utilities. So how do you manage that?
Well, we don't have a utility in Medina County. We tried some of the traditional campaigns, the mailers, emails, those type of things. But basically, when I came on board 5 years ago, it was more of showing up at chamber meetings, council meetings, being at the commissioners' meetings. I am lucky enough in Medina County that we do have a dedicated Economic Development Corporation. It's a 501c3 that has 5 employees. So that does benefit. They have what they call customer care meetings, which I try to tag along to some of those. What we found that was very interesting, though, is, and most recently, we invested a fair amount of money on a 6-month pilot with a calling campaign, a third-party company that does very well nationwide, actually, and they're out of Medina County. And the pilot was a flop. It basically brought in 1 customer after 6 months. And when I went back and actually talked to some of the customers, or prospects, I should say, they said that receiving a phone call for telecommunications services would not gain their interest in learning further about it. But if I were to call in and say, I'm from Medina County, I'm Dave Corrado, and wanted to learn more about your business and how we can help you in Medina County, and oh, by the way, we have this network you might want to look at, they would be more astute and interested in talking about that. So it definitely is the individual, especially if you're in a very patriarchal society like Medina County, very conservative, 2.5 Republicans for every Democrat, still big agricultural community, lots of old manufacturing. You have to show up. You have to be there in front of them. And that's the way that we do our marketing today even. It's not through the traditional campaigns and things you would see from regular commercial carriers.
One of the biggest lessons I think I take away from Utopia is one of the open access model in which of one network as Utopia does and many providers. What do you have, 14? How many do you have now?
10 residential, or 11 cities, and 10 residential providers and over 30 business.
So a lot of providers. But one of the early lessons was that they don't necessarily do their own marketing. So what do you do in this situation where you have a shared network, you own it, your success lies in it having a lot of customers, but your partners and providers aren't marketing?
You do it yourself. One of the issues that Utopia had when it started is it's owned by 11 cities, but there was a settlement at the beginning of the project in which the settlement from one of the incumbents said that the cities are not allowed to market this network, which, wow, they own it. They're financially responsible for it, but they can't market it. So as Utopia Fiber, that's what we do. We go out and market. I mean, if you can get Utopia Fiber in Utah, you will see us. One of the lessons learned is when we started, they did it I call it the Field of Dreams model. If you build it, they will come. That did not happen. And so we started going out and saying, well, we need to market because for good or bad, people know the Utopia Fiber name. They don't know necessarily some of our local providers. So today, I mean, you will see Utopia Fiber. Since I'm in marketing, I like kind of jokey ads. You'll see us on YouTube. You'll see us on Pandora. You'll see us on Facebook. You'll see us everywhere you turn on the internet. As somebody wrote in the other day on our website and said, how did you hear about Utopia? And my boss thought it was hilarious because they would go like, the incessant Facebook ads. I was like, well, it worked. You wrote in. So
Prepare for more.
yeah, come on. Or I had somebody write in the other day, stop giving me ads until you can deliver to my house. So we have to be out there. One of our biggest keys that we do is when we go to somebody's house at the install, when we finish installing, it's not an easy install to install fiber, as everybody knows. We give them a welcome packet. What that welcome packet has is a blanket. It has red vines. It has popcorn. And it says, welcome to Utopia Network. On top of that, it has a referral card. And it says, if you refer, then you will get a $25 gift card too. Both of you will get a $25 Amex gift card. We've taken all the tactics and saying, yeah, it's a city. The cities don't know how to market, but we're going to do this and we're going to go out there because it's more important that the success happens because if we don't have success, the cities are financially liable. So we're just out there just marketing it away. So if you're ever in Utah, you'll probably see us on Facebook or anywhere you go.
So quick marketing comments. Cheryl, you want to jump in?
We kind of went backwards toward that because we had so many people in our county that were desperate for service that the day that we opened up the portal for people to sign up as interested in service, within a couple months we had 200 people signed up as interested before we had an antenna on anywhere in the county. And so we had to manage expectations tremendously and not market and not say anything about we're providing service because so many people were like, well, you're providing it, why isn't it here now? And so it took us probably a year before we actually started doing much marketing and then very targeted to those areas, things on door handles and direct mailings.
And I agree. We used to take that approach when we first launched of we don't want to upset the people who can't get it, right? That was one of the issues we always had. I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
I want to drive demand. Right. I want people to be upset. I want them talking to their city council.
Yeah.
I want them out there. Because if they do, that drives people to want the cities to make action and make action happen faster.
Yeah.
So I want to see if there's any questions. We have a brief period of time. Oh, I thought she was going to kick him off the stage. We can give you 15 minutes for questions. Looks like Fletcher gets the first one. I'll do your intro for you. Fletcher Kittredge, GWI, small ISP in Maine.
It sounds, reading between the lines, that Medina has an open access dark fiber model.
No, it is dark and lit.
Okay. And is that true of Utopia too?
It is a fully lit network.
So you don't do dark?
People can, not much, but there are some major companies who've come in who've asked for dark fiber, and we'll build it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to...
but it's not something we actively really promote. We have done dark fiber builds before.
So if you are building a network and you want to share it, there are multiple ways of doing it. And one is what we call dark fiber, where it's kind of like leasing a pipe. You get to install the pumps on each end and figure out if you want to put coke through it or water or sewage or something else. That's dark fiber. Lit fiber has a much lower cost entry, although you're constrained because you're using the equipment of someone else. You're basically leasing a path from the customer to your server. So that's a very brief intro as to what they were just discussing.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Drew from Mage Networks. We're a Canadian technology company. We've got a new technology that allows last mile hopping of signals out to rural areas. But I just wanted to ask you, in Canada, we've actually had some difficulties selling to ISPs because they see it as, we've already got the cookie. Why would we need the crumbs? Those little areas way out on the fringes. So some communities in Canada are looking at trying to start and operate their own ISPs like you've done. And I was quite surprised that some of you have, are you doing like wholesale pricing so that you're not competing with the existing ISPs? Like if you pay for the infrastructure yourselves, then you'd probably have a wholesale price that you resell to the existing ISPs, or are you just saying, who cares about the ISPs? We're gonna be our own ISP and we don't care if those guys fall off to the side. Like, to what degree are communities kind of just going at it as a profit business for themselves, and to what degree are they just being the infrastructure? Do you guys have any insight on that?
I can answer that question. So we do have a wholesale model, but the UTOPIA is not legally allowed to sell retail services, just from legislation that was passed with you, my lovely friends, the incumbents. But we do have a wholesale model to the ISP. So like, just to break it down, for a residential customer, there's two bills from UTOPIA. You get a $30 lease bill, which we call to lease the network for the infrastructure, and then there is your ISP bill, which is is on average about $35. And so your $65 is our low-end price for 250 meg up and down. But there is some cost. So there's the operational cost. We get a portion of that $35 for operational, and the $30 just covers the build from the UTOPIA side.
So does the ISP bill that directly?
The ISP, the customer gets two bills. Yeah, the ISP bills that directly.
We have an open network. We haven't been taken up on the open part of the network. And I think the reason why is because you have to set the proper expectations. If the taxpayers are paying for this network, even if you're not assessing or billing them separately for it, how do you control the expectations that brought this about? So we decided to have our own ISP, to run it ourselves, with the idea that we would do the best we possibly could for the taxpayers. If someone else came onto that network and wanted to service customers, we would lease fiber to them without any problem. We even, in our mind, would think that they would still use all of our equipment to make that happen. So I think it goes back to those expectations from the community. What are they actually after? I just don't know how. It's very difficult to manage the ISPs to get that. Some of them, with 30 or 40 on your network, it's easy to manage those expectations because it's if they don't do a good job, they're able to jump to someone else very quickly. At ours, we're the only one on at the moment.
Now, we've gone with a consolidated billing model. So the way it works with our 14 carriers, if the carriers are coming to us with the opportunity, we have stated transport costs based on the size of the circuit that they can use. However, in about 85% of the cases, I'm actually selling the carrier services. So when I walk in to a company, they give me their business requirements, I'll sort of do a triage in my mind as to which carriers best suits them if they're looking for hosted PBX, the size of their budget, et cetera. And what we will do then is all our contracts with our customers are held by the carrier, not by Medina County Fiber. we then invoice the carrier for the transport monthly. So we allow each carrier to basically do their customer advocacy. It's sort of their contract to lose, is the way that we talk about it. And then what's nice is when renewal time comes up, I can walk over to the customer as a neutral and say, tell me how this carrier on our network did for you, because we have 13 other carriers. And if they didn't do a good job, I have plenty to help with you. Then that's how I try to maintain the renewals. And the first call goes to the carrier for the Network Operations Center, and we train their Network Operations Centers to call our Network Operations Center on a level 2 call.
So last question.
Hi, yes. My name is Kevin Easterling. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Yay, born in Allentown General.
Oh, okay. Well, we have the great distinction of being known as the third least connected city in the nation for a city of its size. And I was curious, from the way I understand it, in Pennsylvania, you can't create your own network through a municipality or a county if you are because we have what's called first right of refusal from Verizon and Comcast. And I was curious, are any of you in states that are first right of refusal states? I think there's 28.
So just a quick clarification, there are on the order of 20 states that limit broadband networks. Michigan does have a similar provision, but Ohio does not, Maryland does not. UTOPIA has all kinds of problems. So Melanie, you want to talk a little bit about how you dealt with that?
We have some regulations where we had to go out and bid first. We had to put out a bid, a public bid, of what kind of system we wanted. So we put it out. We said we wanted a symmetrical, fiber network. If you get 3 competitive bids back, then you're not allowed to bid. But if you don't get 3 competitive bids, which we didn't, then you're allowed to go forward through a somewhat cumbersome process, but we made it through each one of them. And I don't know if Pennsylvania's is similar to Michigan that way. It was competitive bid, then you had to do a cost-benefit analysis, have it certified by a CPA firm, have it posted on the website for 60 days or 90 days, and then and have a public meeting, and then you could go ahead and build.
So one of the things that I've been heartened by in Pennsylvania is that in more rural areas, Verizon has not stood in the way, is my understanding. It has allowed communities to move forward, given its blessing, as it has to under Pennsylvania law. I don't believe Comcast has a right of first refusal. I think it's just the incumbent telephone company. I would say that this makes an important lesson, which is that each state has restrictions, but they often have some opportunities even in the face of those restrictions. So in North Carolina, it's very difficult to do what many of these people have done, but they could do what Lincoln, Nebraska has done. So it's important to be creative and to try and hope that you have a city attorney that recognizes that you need to use the law to figure out how you can act within it, rather than just saying, no, we're prescribed from doing anything. But that's possibly the best we can do.
Okay, and secondly, do any of you all administer Lifeline funding? I was curious, in your county.
No, I don't believe so, and I don't believe you have the opportunity to anymore. There's Bill Callahan. Do you mind raising your hand? I would say probably one of the best people to talk to about Lifeline issues, but the program has become more restrictive, and so I don't know that any of us would, any of the folks up here, or anyone who doesn't operate their own cellular network would necessarily be able to do that right now. Thanks for asking hard questions right at the end. Very good questions. Please join me in thanking the panel. We are going to have a 15-minute break right now. Please definitely meet some new faces, and we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Thank you, Ernie.
Yep, thank you.
You're always intimidating. Whatever. Thanks, Kim.
That's fun.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a great job.
We're gonna laugh some. I mean, at the UTOPIA regulations, I mean, we could go on for years. Like,
Yeah.
they've tried everything.
Yeah.
To figure.
Yes.